Good morning. Welcome to the November 15th Environmental Resource Committee meeting. We'll start by pledging allegiance.
Well, let me go. Oh, more. Okay.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
We have two members that are not here today, but we have a quorum, so we'll proceed. First item is the draft agenda. Are there any amendments that anyone feels need to be made, or if not, I need a motion to approve the draft agenda.
I move to approve the draft agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting minutes from October 18th. Are there any corrections or additions or changes that need to be made? Not, I need a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comments on agenda items. We have no public presence. First item of old business is the Earth Day Arbor Day Committee. Chad, did you want to start with comments about that?
Yeah, I'll start with some comments about that. So the Earth Day Arbor Day Committee, I know y'all are working on volunteers. I will give you an update that I couldn't last time because I didn't know about it, but the town of Sunset Beach is actively seeking a new staff member to be head of all events for the town and to be a deputy finance officer. Did I say that right? All right.
Cool.
So, events coordinator / deputy finance officer. That position is open. We're accepting applications for that. So that person will be head of all events for the town, including helping and managing Arbor Day. I will still be involved, but you will be getting a full-time person just for events now, where I'll be able to help be a liaison to this board and help with that, but you'll get a full-time staff member devoted just toward events, which, as you know, the past 2 years, or 3 years now, this is would be our third. There have been times where I've been able to, days where I've been fully able to do this, but there have also been days where I've not been able to fully indulge into this, where this will be a good thing for the town. So that's where we're at with that. The committee will help, and under the direction of that new events coordinator, with this moving forward. I will still be in attendance, so that's kind of where we're at for that. The dates are on the calendar. The town council approved the dates last night to be put on the 2024 calendar. So the 19th and the 26th of April are solidified that. So the 19th being the main date, 26th being the rain date, and moving forward for that. So,
Any questions?
Yeah, Chad, how much, you say this is a full-time person to do this stuff,
yes, sir.
but it's half deputy finance officer?
I don't know how the split's going to be. I think that they'll be under Tara's direction, but also on the admin wing under direction of Lisa and Tara when it comes to events. I'm sure there will be a collaborative effort to train as the events are laid out in the Unified Development Ordinance as well. But as we're seeing the park becoming more popular and popular, that's where the majority of the rules will come into. So, thanks.
Okay. What we had hoped to do today was to create a committee of members of the bigger committee to be focused on Earth Day, Arbor Day. Michael had volunteered to be on that. Unfortunately, two of the members from last year's committee, Mila and Candace, are not here today. I doubt that Candace, well, I don't want to speak for her. I've asked if they want to be on the committee, but they're not here to volunteer. We can, last year we gave, the Green Subcommittee took the responsibility. This year we can create a committee for the event with members from any of the subcommittees. So is there anyone else that would like to be on the Earth Day, Arbor Day committee?
I would like to know what that subcommittee's members' responsibilities would entail. I'm not real clear on that. What we would actually do.
Well, a big part of that is getting it organized and soliciting exhibitors to participate. A big part of that is surveying the local businesses and getting talking to them about parking and what they will allow and what they won't allow.
Right.
Chad, you could probably add to this.
Parking at the park.
Parking at the park is a big part of it.
So it's all of it for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, when it goes to putting the vendors in spots, Steve, you and I have worked on that in the past year. Dealing with Sunset at Sunset, having that solidified, strategically putting people where they want to be and where we need them to be. The parking is the biggest aspect of that. You have a certain amount of spots down there. You're limited depending on the businesses, what they'll allow you to do or what they won't allow you to do. At times, you have head-in right-of-way parking at a diagonal angle that can be utilized. With it being a town event, and you got a little bit more flexibility when it comes to under the bridge and Fire Station 2. So that's the problematic part of this whole entire thing it is the parking around the park, and the somewhat of enigma to how do you create more parking down there. So all of that's become the biggest thing. We do the best with what we can moving forward and try to manage it as best we can too. So
I was on it 2 years ago, and I will say that it does take up a lot of time. We already have one person from the community that has volunteered to help with this, and I expect she's listening to this discussion right now. But we need to have a combination of committee members and volunteers to make this a little bit more reasonable workload for everybody.
I have a question. Involved in Earth Day, Arbor Day. This is a town event, right?
yes,
Okay. It's not something that's just this committee's.
it is, and the board is part of the town. It is an official town-sponsored event, but it is being driven by this committee.
Okay.
Now you're adding an extra component to it of an events coordinator that will manage and oversee that along with the committee.
So we're not going to be responsible for the parking. It's going to be the towns.
That will be the town's responsibility since it is that. Yeah, that's what we've done with other events, such as actually all the events. Am I right? So Veterans Day, 9/11, Sunset at Sunset, Trunks Retreats, all of those events, parking is obtained and worked on by the town and town staff.
I would speculate that the new person, whoever he or she is, would handle a good bit of that work. Now, how much obviously I don't know, with the guidance of an expertise and experience of the subcommittee members, because I think we would take last year's contact list and so forth as a starting point. So,
Yeah, the first
yeah,
event, the inaugural event, was pretty much solely the committee,
yeah,
the ERC event. And then after the event, the town passed a motion to make it a annual town event. And that's what the basis was for last year. But again, the town and the event were going through transition
yeah,
as all the ways of doing things were changing. And hopefully it's a little more established for the coming year. But we still have to do a lot of legwork, a lot of groundwork to make it happen. And the other thing I think the committee needs to look at is, do we need to change the format of the event in some way? We had talked in the past about having side areas where there could be presentations made. So I think there were a lot of ideas that came out last year and that have carried over that we need to evaluate and decide what we want to do with them.
one of the things I recall from Sunset at Sunset was there were food trucks out there, and I don't know whether we want to go that route or not, but people love to eat.
Well, I think now that's an option where it wasn't an option.
Yeah, I think that is going to be conversations between the committee that is formed to help the events coordinator and the events coordinator to move forward.
Right. That's just an observation I had.
Yes.
I think the main thing that when we did it the first time is getting the right groups here.
Sure,
And the reason I
sure.
say that is a lot of them get booked up way in advance.
Well,
And then they end up, each group ends up, I mean, you could have a separate presentation area. Maybe they go up to the presentation area, central presentation area, but then each group when you go to their booth
yeah.
or their table, they have documentation
Right,
about what they do.
right.
A lot of, to me, it was interesting to learn a lot about that stuff that you didn't even know
Oh, yeah.
existed.
Yeah. You know, Miss
But
Stephen,
you have to get on their calendar.
Candace is involved in the program the Extension Service has, Master Gardener.
Right.
And so she's got an end with that group and the little trees and so forth.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I know we're getting into the details,
I
but
know.
I'd like to have like each group there and then have
Yeah.
a presentation area where
Yeah.
each person would present to a group of people
Yeah.
a piece of what they're.
Well,
That's a
I'm
good
going
idea, I think.
to stick my neck out here and volunteer to be on that committee, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
And who else? Well, is anybody else going to be with me, please?
I believe Mila has indicated
Okay.
an interest to be on the committee
Okay.
again, but and I sent her an email, but I haven't got a reply to it
Well,
yet.
she's about 10 hours difference.
Yeah,
in us,
she's
so-
halfway around the world
Yeah.
from here.
Yeah. So I do think it's important, maybe, and if you have the core committee, because my schedule's kind of dicey in February and March.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be good, maybe to bounce it off all of us. Like the committee comes up with these ideas, just because we had a lot of good experience in
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
one, and I think, like you mentioned, food. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Having beer, food, whatever, is a
Right.
great idea. And then
Well,
and we didn't have it before because they have recyclable, there's recyclable materials. But I think it would be good, you have the committee, but then maybe
Yeah.
you can ask us to help out.
The one thing I'll throw out there on that third one, you could have a rotating member in
Yeah.
that seat as well.
yeah. Well, I guess.
I'm more than willing to help out, but I just can't commit to the time right now.
Right.
The one thing that
Here he is.
Morning, Councilman.
Councilman to be.
The the reason we create a 3-person committee is so they can meet outside of our monthly
Right.
meetings.
Right.
But we could have we could have multiple members of the committee, but only 3 of them can meet at a time.
Okay.
So Steve, if you want to sign up on that basis.
I just can't commit to being to the meetings. That's all I'm saying. I can rotate, but
Okay, so we'll sign you up as a
a
rotating member.
rotator. Because I don't want people to get frustrated because if I'm not here, I'll provide my input.
Well, if you're not here, we'll just assign certain duties to you. That's all. That's the way that
okay.
works.
That's easy.
Okay, so we have an initial committee with Michael Cassidy, with Mila Millman, and that's to be confirmed with her, with Don Eggert, and with Steve Levine as a rotating member.
Is Mila in Vietnam on State Department business or
No, she's on a
vacation?
vacation.
Cool.
They're doing a tour of Europe.
Oh, of Europe?
Europe,
Oh, Europe. Vietnam's not in
I mean
Europe.
Asia.
Okay, okay.
Asia.
All right. All right.
Is there any other thing to talk about on the committee? Chad, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, sir.
Okay. Next item is the Jinks Creek Tubbs Inlet shoaling. I've got a bunch of PowerPoint slides that I would like to go over with everybody. Tubbs, start with Tubbs. If you could look at this. First thing I want to say is that shoaling in Jinks Creek and Tubbs Inlet is not a new problem. This is a historical problem that's existed since the beginning of time. But the current shoaling situation goes back to conditions that occurred before 2016. And Pete, you probably have more background in this than I do, but the first discussions with town council on the dredging project in Jinks Creek appear in the town minutes for 2016. So the conditions had to exist before then. And if this is an aerial photograph of Tubbs Inlet, and you'll see this area over here, which is a lot of sand is built up, which affects navigation coming out for all the boaters out of the properties in town. What you'll also see here, and I'll point these things out to, hopefully you'll remember them as we go through more slides. But you'll see that there's a very dark area of water coming out of North Jinks Creek across the south and down out the inlet. One thing to notice is that this channel of water, which is called a flood tide, a flood channel, is coming from the west. And when that cuts off the west end of Ocean Isle Beach, but the water comes up and comes around and goes out North Jinks Creek. The spit of land here, we'll see in other slides, over the years has continued to grow out into the northeast direction. Which button do I push, Alan? I turned it off, I guess.
What did you press? Okay. Should be just these back and forth.
Okay.
It's just those two.
All
That's
right.
right.
So we go from 2011 to 2016. Now, there are differences in shading in these photographs because of the depth of water. They're not all at low tide. But here you can see there's still the presence of the shoaling out in the Bay Area here. There's still the channel that comes around. The shape of the spit is different, and that can happen very quickly. It doesn't last for decades. It can happen almost in a yearly manner. And the flood channel has moved from this direction to coming up more right along the edge of Ocean Isle Beach. We go to 2017. We still have the shoaling in this area, and that must have been a big impediment to navigation of boaters out of the town, because it still exists in 2018. One thing you'll notice in 2017 is the appearance of this dock. This is the dock for Palm Cove that was built. And it was built as it was permitted by the CRC. But the width of the spit of land is pretty wide. And over the years, it's narrowed down. In 2018, in 2017, you see the first houses that show up. You still see the shoaling. 2019, there is a breach that occurred through the spit where the water had cut through, and there was a channel for flow, probably ebb tide flow coming out here, and the flood tide coming in that way. That breach had filled in, and the main channel was right up through the middle. And in 2022, we see the first evidence of the dredging that the town did. There were additional houses that were built on Palm Cove. But you'll see that the flood channel has moved away from the end of Ocean Isle Beach, and that the flood channel coming down on the west side of the spit is it's not centered on the middle of Palm Cove, but it's over on the right edge. And that spit is narrower than it had been in prior years. And in 2023, this picture was taken in February by NOAA. It's at very low water conditions, but you can see that the flood channel from the inlet comes out this way and is eroding this shoreline. It's moved far away from Ocean Isle Beach. And as that flood water comes up and around, it's eroding this shoreline here, and it's impinging upon this property here, which is at the edge of the sandbags on Palm Cove. And that's where we stand now. Oh, we'll take another picture probably in February of next year, and we'll see what the aerial photograph changes are.
So they're starting dredging now, right? And more dredging, correct? But it's not in that picture, right?
No, the dredging that's going on now is in the finger canals.
Okay.
And there is some dredging that's being done down in this area.
Right. Okay.
Any questions on this?
I've got kind of a related question. when the land area expands, say the sand is builds up, who owns that property?
I
Well,
mean, down in here,
yeah, down in there, yeah.
if it goes underwater, it's public property. If it comes above the water, it's, as Pete said,
Actually,
Okay.
the property lines,
Don't go away.
Chad, I think you can probably confirm
think you
this,
still
but the
own it.
property lines
Yeah.
exist. And if it comes out of the water, it belongs to whoever had it before.
Okay.
You want to build a house there? No.
No,
I'm teasing.
just
man.
a crazy
Okay,
thought.
Alan,
the
would
rest
you
of my
go
life.
to the next slideshow?
Thank you.
It's not up here, Alan. Oh, there you go. Okay. This is the slideshow for the study that we did. This is just a picture showing how beautiful that area is with all the clouds behind it. When we started this study, we started collecting photographs in May of this year. The study actually began in April when Steve and I were talking about how we could get this thing kicked off, and he thought it would be a good idea to get some expertise from the local charter captains. And Tim DeSano volunteered to take a party on a tour of Jinks Creek. And John Corbett, Mike Hargraves, Steve Hines, and myself went on that boat tour. And then after that boat tour, we started collecting drone photographs. This is a picture of it as it existed, of Jinks Creek as it existed in May. You see the area here that had been dredged by the town, and it goes from this point all the way around up to this point, actually up to here. But you'll see how the sand has built up in this area, and a lot of that was pre-existing, but it's just gotten larger area and higher in elevation as more sand has come into this area from a lot of different places. One thing to notice is this area here is grass. That's marsh grass. And that area is growing in size as the sand builds up and gets out of the water.
Where does the sand come from predominantly?
Most of the sand comes from the inlet.
Okay.
Comes from over here. It comes in, it washes over the spit, it gets carried with the water. Scientists call this a tidal delta, which is formed by which we believe is formed by the flood tides that wash all that sand into this area.
What has changed over time to increase the amount of sand?
That's a subject of debate.
Okay.
I think there's evidence to indicate that there is reduced flow of water through Jinks Creek. So there's not as much flushing flow to carry the sand that comes in. Historically has been carried out. You get the flood tides bring it in and the ebb tides take it out. But as the amount of sand builds up, there's less flow, so there's less flushing that takes place.
Okay.
Would you agree with that, Steve?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, I think that when an inlet first opens up, let's say probably due to a storm event or something like that, that there's a period of time where the sand that starts accumulating. And I think that over many, many, many years, it will accumulate. Depends on what happens. Depends on, you know, tidal flushing, and depends on the any storm events that we have. But I've seen it in the past where, you know, maybe from the 38 hurricane, and that was one maybe that generated this opening. I don't recall, was it the
Pardon?
1938 hurricane generate this Tubbs Inlet? Did that open up Tubbs Inlet?
Tubbs Inlet, no. Tubbs Inlet has been open as long as there are records.
Okay, well,
used to be down almost by 16.
right.
Hmm.
But I mean, I've seen places where there was no inlet, and then as a result of the hurricane, it opens up, and then that process starts where the sand comes in, and it will eventually it covers some of the habitat that was there previously. Now, I don't know if that's continuing to go on or here, or but generally on a tidal cycle, sand comes in and sand goes out.
Well, Tubbs Inlet goes back to before the dredging of the Intercoastal Waterway, which is goes back to the 30s. And in the 30s, Tubbs Inlet was over here. And then over the years, the inlet migrated down into this area in the 60s. And then Maningore brought it back to this area so that he could develop that property in there. And we got photographs of all that stuff. But so we'll start with this picture of what it looked like in May of this year. This is again in May, and here you see how the shoaling has filled in the channel area around the Palm Cove dock. You can see how the water comes in more from the east up along that shoreline, and this is the flood channel that has eroded away that bank and is impacting on this area down in here. In 2020, there was a very severe erosion problem right along this shoreline with Palm Cove, and it eroded away the shoreline and revealed the water pipes and created a lot of threatened the roadway. It came right up, in fact, it undercut the roadway there. So Palm Cove got permission and put in all these sandbags to protect the shoreline. But as this shoreline has eroded and that flood channel has moved east, the sand that's been carried in here is starting to fill in underneath those sandbags. And you'll see that sand in this area, and it's been carried out into this area. And that has only increased through this year. This is looking at it from the other direction. Here you see the grass island that's forming. You'll see where there's some water that has cut into the spit area. But I think this gives you a good picture of the flood channel down, impinging on this shoreline and pushing the sand back into this direction. Now we go to July. And from May to July, there's a lot more sand along the shoreline. And there's a lot more erosion on that shoreline. This is a picture of the shoreline adjacent to Palm Cove. This is not Palm Cove property. This is beyond the edge of their property. The sandbags, I believe, and this undeveloped lot are the eastmost end of Palm Cove. So the people that own this land out here have that shoreline as part of their property. But as you can see, the erosion that has taken place here in June or July is not very severe. We didn't get out to measure the height of it, but my estimation was it was around maybe up to knee high. This shows where the direction of the floodwaters coming in, shows how the erosion has taken place on the shoreline, the flood channel shoreline. It shows how the water is eroding into the spit area. There's grass here, and there's erosion that has started in this area. And we've got the island here with the grass in the middle. And we jump from July into September. September and October were months of big change. It was unexpected, but there were a lot of things that happened. The flood waters come in still from the east direction, come around. There's been more erosion on here. There's been more sand buildup in here.
So we had that storm, right? That one storm. We got hit, but it wasn't bad. Maybe that's when it changed. In September. What was that hurricane? It was a tropical storm, hurricane. Came across Florida.
Well, what I've been told by
Yeah.
people that know more than I do is that tropical storms have a very minor impact on inlets. The major impacts on inlets come from tides.
Okay.
And it's mostly king tides
Right.
that affect the conditions in the inlets. And that seems to be what we're seeing.
Mm. We had a lot of king tides.
Yes. This is that same shoreline again, where it has continued to erode. This was a picture that was taken September 28th, and you can see that the erosion is starting to get greater. And it has washed over the corner of the sandbag and cut into the sand behind the sandbag. And it even displaced one of the sandbags from the top. This is a picture of that same shoreline at high tide. And here you can see how the water is starting to creep into the area beyond the edge of the shoreline. And one thing to notice here is the sand dune. The sand dunes that come along here that protect the property from ocean waves.
Yeah.
When you get behind those, we get a big storm surge, or a big surge of water, and it's going to direct things in this direction.
That's what I was thinking, based on that picture.
Here you see that the sandbags at the corner are inundated.
Wow.
And this is what we think caused the problem. At the end of September, there was a period of 10 days where there were king tides. And those king tides washed over that spit of land. And it's that action of flood tides and ebb tides over that land that eroded that spit down quite a bit and pushed a lot more sand in behind Sunset Beach. And that additional water coming in would impact on the shoreline that was eroded. And here you see
Is that high tide?
That's a high tide.
Wow.
Flood channel still comes here, but now it's being pushed to the west. We go to October. This is October 28th, so it's after the king tide event. But there's a lot more sand in this area, and we start to see the appearance of a cut across the spit, which is the start of a breach in the spit. The breach hasn't fully connected the channel with the creek, but it's in the process of taking place. And I've got some other pictures of that. Here you see that the area in front of the shoreline that got severely eroded in 2020 is filled in with a lot of sand. And the area around the dock has been filled in with sand. There is a channel of flow through here, but it comes in actually behind the dock out in this direction. Now we'll look at October 28th, and we'll see the erosion that occurred from all the flooding that took place in early September, or late September and early October. That's quite a bit. It's quite a change, and it was quite shocking to see that change. And you'll see how it disturbed the sandbags, and it's gotten around the sandbags. This is the tidal delta that's forming. You've got all the grass up here, and depending on what happens in the future, that grass will continue to grow and spread. As that tidal delta gets covered in grass, it becomes a permanent fixture.
Relatively
Pardon?
relatively permanent.
Yeah. Now the proposal that Palm Cove had made to create the dredge and navigation channel was to go basically right through the middle of this tidal delta, and I'm not going to comment on that, but that's what their proposal was. But this shows the breach that's developing across here. As that breach develops, it's being created by ebb tide flow pushing sand this way. And if that grows deeper and connects the creek and the channel together, that's going to open up a source of greater flow into the area behind Sunset Beach. And I don't think we have the expertise to judge what that will cause to happen, but we have observed. This was high tide on the 29th of October, and here you can see the channel that's being formed, the breach channel. You see how the water at high tide covers over the tidal delta, but it's what do you think it is? It's probably about 4 or 5 feet deep. Maybe not that much.
I don't know. I really don't know.
This was taken at a tide at a water level height of 6.1 feet, and it says minus 0.6, but it was actually about 1 foot above being low water. So there's about 5 feet of water over the tidal delta at this time. But then the other day I got curious and I walked out to the out on the spit and took these pictures. And here you can see the erosion that's taken place. This is my wife standing as a reference. She's a little over 5.5 feet tall. So you can see that from the May and July period where we think that was close to knee-high erosion, it's now over 6 feet high. And that's occurred very quickly, and it's occurred because of king tide events, not because of tropical storm. And it's damaged the sandbags at the end here, and it's starting to erode toward Palm Cove. That's another picture of the delta. And this is out on the spit. This is as far as the water goes in the breach that's developing, and it winds across and goes all the way back to the creek. And I was standing there on that picture. In this picture, you'll see this dark area here goes over to this dark area here, and that's where the erosion is starting to take place from the channel to connect to the water from the creek. And if that continues to develop and get deeper, then that's going to make a lot of other big changes out there.
Yeah, the whole stream might go through there instead of go around that long loop.
Well, it'll go both areas, so it'll bring a lot more flow into the into the area. Are there any questions about that?
Very good presentation.
Interesting.
The included with the pictures is an outline of our shoaling study. The pictures that we showed were done by some of them were done by Mickey Cochran, some of them were done by John Wells. Chief Claymore from the Sunset Beach Police Department also provided some pictures earlier in the year that I didn't include in this. But we've got drone photographs beginning in March and going March, April, May, July, August, September, and October. We've got a lot of good reference photographs of the changes that are occurring. We had engaged with North Carolina Sea Grant and talked to them about some of the early photographs we saw. They did a LiDAR data analysis and created elevation maps for us. They also did a shoreline horizontal erosion map for us. And their recommendation at that time was, we kept asking them a lot of questions. Their recommendation was that we hire a professional engineer to do a more expert analysis on the erosion and shoaling issues. And there's no budget to do that right now, so that hasn't been done. We collected photographs of Tubbs Inlet, the aerial photographs like I showed from 2011. We have those going back to 1938. I got a collection of those slides. I've also got the permitting information from Palm Cove from 2014 when they put the docks in that show the conditions in the inlet. They have the topobathy maps that show the elevation below the water level of the inlet at that time, and we have the LiDAR analysis in 2019. So we've got some information from 2014 to 2019 on the elevation changes in Jenks Creek. On April 3rd, Palm Cove made a presentation to Town Council with some of the information from their engineer, and we've got that in our records of information. All in all, our drone photographs, we've got 2 different days at high tide, and we've got 16 different videos and 169 photographs that have been collected. And that's a very extensive library of information that we're trying to understand. Some of our observations, as we saw in the aerial photographs in 2011 and 2016, that it looked like there was a significant amount of flow going through Jenks Creek into Tubbs Inlet. But today, the dominant flow into Tubbs Inlet is not from Jenks Creek, it's from behind Ocean Isle Beach. And what that means is that that's going to push the inlet channel towards Sunset Beach. It's going to cause erosion on the west side of that channel, which I think I pointed out in the pictures is occurring. And that is what caused the inlet to move from 1938 to the 1960s. A similar kind of situation occurred, and it pushed the inlet all the way down to somewhere around, I don't know, 10th Street, 11th Street.
16th Street.
But when Man and Gore got permits to move the inlet, he was given permits by the Corps of Engineers to move it back to its prior location. And that's where he put it. It was back in the area where it was in the 30s and early 40s. We talked about the island behind Palm Cove where the grass is growing. That continues to grow. We talked about the fact that the shoreline along the sandbags has started to fill in as the sand moves around in that area. We talked about the shoaling that is built up around the Palm Cove docks, basically rendering them useless. I think I pretty much addressed all the other points on the observations that we've made. Going forward, Sea Grant had recommended that we hire a coastal engineering firm to further evaluate the changes. As far as Steve and I are concerned, that recommendation is still on the table, but we have no budget to do that. Tubbs Inlet is classified under CAMA as an inlet hazard area with its own unique regulation. And considering what's going on there, we believe that the information we've put together should be shared with the DCM, with the Division of Coastal Management, so that their records of conditions here are up to date. And when we get this report further completed, it'll be our recommendation that that be shared with them. Are there any questions about any of this? What I've given you today is something that we put together pretty short order with my shoulder surgery. I didn't have a lot of time to work on this and on the report. But Steve and I have worked together on this, and this will be the outline of the report going forward, and hopefully by sometime early next year we'll have that completed. There's no other questions about that, and we'll move on. New business. Next item is the December report to Town Council that was attached to the agenda in the packet. What we've listed here are the accomplishments of the ERC in 2023 and the goals and objectives that we have going forward in 2024. Does anyone have any questions about any of this or anything that has been omitted that we need to add to it?
I've got just a common observation. First of all, I think it's good that you've got these 10 items here. I think it would be very useful to the committee that we keep these in front of us. In other words, we just don't look at them today and put them in a file. Then back maybe in September, think, oh my gosh, we haven't done anything about that. It might be useful that we, at least every other month or so, see what's going on with some of these things before they fall off our radar. And by that, I don't mean we have to have a long discussion necessarily, but just kind of keep those fresh in our minds.
That's a great idea,
Yeah.
Don. I think that's easy to do, too.
Yeah.
So I have a question for Chad. Item number 10, the 2024 goals and objectives. Is it realistic to keep that on that Tree City USA certification
I think so,
for
yes.
2024? Okay.
Yes.
So I think we can get a tree board up, ready to go. Oh, that's good.
It might be prioritized as well, or perhaps grouped, because it seems to me that some of them are relatively low effort
Mhm.
and others are kind of high effort. So there might be some proverbial low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Then that which is not low-hanging, which requires more effort, get some prioritization might be appropriate.
That's a good suggestion. And I think we can put together a plan for next year and do that. How would you change the order?
Well,
I put these 10 items down off the top of my head,
yeah,
but
and
it's kind of in the order of priority that
and I can appreciate that. I think this is just shooting from the hip here without a whole lot of thought about it. Some of these, for example, the Tree City certification may not be that big of a deal, but the Earth Day Arbor Day thing would be, as we've discussed, a good bit of effort. I'm not sure if we're not would be comparing apples and oranges here. It might not be. I mean, I like your idea, but maybe putting apples and oranges together might not necessarily work. For example, I mean, I guess everything here is important to somebody. The BEMC community grant application is probably not a big deal. Our exhibit at Sunset is not a real big deal. So I don't know. Not sure how to do that.
I think we could shuffle these priorities around.
Sure.
When we present to town council, we have a very limited amount of time.
Oh yeah.
And I just want to give them the big picture.
Yeah. I think you're right, John. We or you don't want to get into the weeds with the council on this, because they spend a lot of time with stuff that's really less critical than some other stuff. That makes any sense.
At some point, though, it might be useful to not only kind of put dates on them and review, as was suggested, but
Yeah.
also
Put it on
to,
the schedule.
for some of them, to identify some evaluation
Yeah.
criteria. How will we know that
Yeah.
at the end of the year
Right.
it's been achieved, and to what extent it's been
Right.
achieved?
That might be a discussion for the next meeting.
We can put something together for the next
Yeah.
meeting and talk about that. Kind of an action item plan.
Yeah.
Okay, if everybody understands this and agrees with it, can I get a motion to approve this for presentation to council in December? Is that necessary?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay,
All right, then I move that we approve the draft December 2023 report and forward it, to the council when we're
is there a
ready to
second?
go.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to subcommittee discussions. Climate verbal report. I think we've
Kind of covered our.
covered that. Candace isn't here to talk about the green subcommittee. Michael, you're the only member of the green subcommittee here. I don't know if there's anything
I've
that's,
been molding with my leg, so that's about as green as I've gotten.
That's not good.
gotta stick that leg in the ground and get it to grow.
That's right.
Don, is there anything on the
Well,
recycling?
I do have a couple things. One, I need to report a success, I guess. Several months ago, I gave a talk to our men's group at Church Seaside United Methodist about recycling and all of that. And come to find out, and talked about preservation of trees and paper and so forth. Come to find out that the church has decided to do away with single-use paper for plates for fellowship meals and so forth, and go back to the permanent plates that they're you throw them to the dishwasher and they're washed rather than just a paper plate you throw in the trash and recycle. So granted, that's a baby step, but it's at least a step in the right direction. The other thing I did want to mention, and this was in the minutes for last meeting, I haven't done anything, is continued to pursue signage for the recycling convenience places at the 904 site and county park out here on Old Georgetown Road. Getting the county to put signs up there, or actually DOT, and say recycling center to the left or whatever.
Right.
Much like they have for the landfill out on Highway 17. So I need to probably bring a resolution to this committee to forward to the council to forward to DOT asking that they put those signs up.
Okay, you're gonna do that
Be
next
at
year?
our January meeting.
Good. How about getting the Brunswick County solid waste coordinator to visit us?
Well, we could do that. I could ask her. I'll email her today and see what her schedule will look like for January and February. Hopefully, she's got some open time. She's been there about a year now and pretty well has a grip on things.
Okay. Next item is December meeting. Ed, you want to address that?
Yes, so with our December meeting being a couple days before break, we've had a busy year, and also with some staff being out of town, staff thinks it's a good idea to cancel the December meeting and move it start fresh into the January 2024 calendar year.
I move that the December meeting be canceled unless there's some time critical information needs to be handled, which I doubt there will be. But I move that we cancel the meeting.
There a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Canceling the December meeting means that we move the election of a new chairman and vice chairs from December to January. Just pointing out that will occur in January. Next item are public comments. Any public comments to be made? No? Okay. I think we have completed the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I've got to say, I appreciate your being at the meetings, trying to get well informed about some of these issues. I understand. I got to go, but appreciate you being here.